should be going in 3, 2. Welcome to today's Teaching Tuesday, guys. And if you guys are here and you guys can hear us, let us know. We're here with Matt Burton, and we're going to have an exciting conversation about finances, but really about your life and how it can, how finances can impact your life and how you can impact your life and change your life to benefit your finances. But before we do that, I want to let all of you guys know about our roadmap workshop tonight. We are hosting what is now, I think, our second or third in a row roadmap workshop. And so there's been a lot of people in our community who want to go deeper with the One Life teaching. They want to figure out, how do I create my personalized roadmap? And so Tim Rode and Carolyn Colleen are going to be walking you guys through that tonight. It's at 5 p.m. And so you guys will be able to still make it for the debate right afterwards. So don't worry about that. But it's at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's free to attend, and it's an interactive experience. You're not just going to be sitting there listening to someone talk. You're actually going to get a chance to go in, learn, and interact and engage with other One-Lifers. You're going to get a chance to interact and dialogue with Tim and Carolyn. And so if you guys want to sign up for that, go to onelifefullylive.org/register, and you can get signed up, and it's totally free. So we'd encourage you to also send it and share it with anybody who needs it as well. All right, so let's get into today's conversation. And our guest of honor today is Matt Burton. And I mentioned a little bit that Matt is, he is what some would call, an expert in finances. And he's writing a book to help people not only just survive, but really thrive and do what we talk about in One Life, which is living your one life fully lived and living your most fulfilled life. And, Matt, I'm going to start the conversation by kind of sharing some context about, one thing about One Life is we try and stress the holistic side of things. And so, it's not just finances, it's also wellness. It's not, just relationships, but it's also, having a vision and it's not just about feeling good and just kind of, sitting around singing Kumbaya, but actually going out there and doing and accomplishing and creating and bringing value. And one of the things that we found in order to do that is you have to be able to fund it, right? So no matter what your one life fully lived looks like, whether that's sitting on a beach, whether that's going out into the forest, whether that's retiring, in a mansion, you're going to need to fund it. You're going to, money is going to play a large role in that. And so that has always been a big part of our teaching and a big part of what, we bring to the communities that we work with. So I'm curious from you, Matt, how finances have played a role in your life. You've been through a couple of financial, through a lot of turmoil. You've been through a couple of ups and downs, and you still have been able to manage it on your feet. Can you share with us your story and kind of how you got into a place where now you're helping people to get through those difficult financial times?
Yeah, so I'd be glad to share some of my story and kind of what I went through. But this year we're experiencing some challenges on many levels. A decade ago, back in 2008, we hit with our little financial crisis, and many people thought they were doing really well, including myself. And I think we got knocked off our feet. Like me personally, I watched some of my 401k take a dive with the stock market. I watched the value of my house take a dive. Some of the housing crisis we went through, and I was working at General Motors at the time, and ultimately they went bankrupt. So even though I had a couple of college degrees and significant work experience, I needed a better roadmap. So over the last decade, I've researched what I did not learn in school to help me understand personal finance, become much more financially literate, to be able to strive in these challenging conditions, not just survive. And yeah, I think we both connect on the importance of money management and how that can help achieve some of those important things in life.
So take me back through, to maybe let's talk about 2008 and how it relates to today, because I think one thing that we've realized in doing these conversations is everybody has been hit in this crisis, whether you're a billionaire. We've talked to billionaires who are feeling it, and we're working, in shelters and communities where people are now, they don't have a home because of what's happened, right? And so we are working and directly seeing that there's no escaping this crisis. And so everybody's kind of dealing with it in their own kind of way. So for you, when you think back about 2008 and you think back, to this time today, is there anything that stands out that's the same? And is there anything that's different for you between kind of these two financial crises? And maybe it's personally, like, you were different because you've kind of gone through it before, or maybe the circumstances are different. But do you think that there's any comparison there? Oh,
Yeah,
you're back. Did
my
we lose
connection's breaking up a little, but I think the best way to, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good to go. We can hear you.
Okay, here we go. So yeah, I think there's some comparisons, and the best way I can explain it was I'm much more prepared for this economic crisis, if you will, on many levels. Some of the basics of, like, it's not just having a reliable source of income, but, did you have a solid emergency fund to lean back on? That can, cash is king. So that can definitely help you in those challenging situations. Did you prepare yourself and confront some of your debt so you have much more cash flow and you don't have so much on your shoulders this time? I didn't. I was much less prepared back in the financial crisis in 2008. And then, like, again, are you paying yourself, right? Are you growing your assets? So if you need to, you can reach back farther. And most importantly, are you taking time on a weekly basis to expand your education in these areas, right? We all know that we didn't learn everything we needed to in college or school. So are we taking the time to expand in some areas that we can learn much more and use those tools to improve our own life?
And you talked about having having an emergency fund. You talked about, some of these tactics, which I think are so valuable. But what I found, at least personally for me, I've read, countless personal finance books, Dave Ramsey's and the Tony Robbins and the, Richest Man in Babylon. But what's interesting is that there, for some reason, are just things that habits I can't break, or for some reason there's, we don't make that decision, or we don't, and so my question to you is, can you think of what created that shift, or what causes that shift in people, to finally realize that the decisions that they make are having, these consequences? Like, I think that so many people, at least for me, lose the connection between their decisions today and their results later on, especially with money, So can you talk a little bit about that and what that shift looked like for you, or in anybody that you've worked with?
Yeah, so I think where I had that shift was once I finally figured out and I came up with kind of 6 steps known as Strive. Where I made my connection was basically, I said, you know what, I want to be able to travel more. I don't want to be in a position where I don't have the funds to book the next flight, the hotel, and go on that destination. I want to have more of a clear roadmap to an early retirement, to escape the rat race, or, I want peace of mind and less stress. And I think once all those things started to click, I knew that that was my strong why of, why does it make sense to start now and start managing my finances? And that's what pulls me through on a weekly basis to take the time, because now I can do all those, and I'm surviving and striving, more importantly, in 2020, because I have a clearer roadmap to get me there.
Yeah, one of the things we talk about in One Life is the fulfillment triangle. And I've seen it, someone talk about it in a variety of different capacities. But what we created it for was to give someone some direction. And so on the left, we have our One Life Fulfillment Triangle. And we use this as a way to prescribe the route and the path that someone can take to creating fulfillment in their life. And what we found is that it's not actually success that people are chasing, because we know a lot of people in our community and we've seen a lot of examples of people who have success, but they still are longing and wanting something else. And what we find that they're actually looking for is fulfillment. And that's at the center of your passions, your talents, and where there's an opportunity out there. It's at the center of what you love to do, what you're good at, and then frankly, where you can make money or make a living doing it. And so for you, I'm curious how this has come up in your life and in your finances, and whether what's interesting is that we found all the guests who have come on our show either intuitively kind of guided themselves to this fulfillment, or they made some, they had to go through a lot of they had to make a lot of mistakes. They had to make a lot of wrong turns in order to find that this was actually what they were looking for. So did you see, or did you, when you reflect on kind of your journey, does the passions, the talents, and the opportunity, did that play a role at all in your financial journey?
Yeah, I think completely. I mean, best case scenario, as we all know, we're using our God-given talents. We're applying them in an area that we're passionate about. And then, of course, more importantly, there's opportunity out there in the market to use them. But regardless, if you're using your talents and there's a market and you're passionate about it, at the end of the day, you have to have the financial education to support those, because there's so much that goes behind, I think, that triangle it's just really not taught in school. So that's where I come in, and I've succeeded with coaching people around the world, ultimately capturing some of this stuff, I hope, in a book, as well as offering a course. This is going to give people those tools they need in their toolbox, because as we all know, there's a lot more to the story.
Yeah. So let's get into that. You're in the process of writing a book, and it's goes over 6 steps. I think we've covered one of them. Let's get into them. I think that would be a great thing for our listeners to cover. So why don't you talk about what those 6 steps are?
Yeah. So I guess high level, the 6 steps that I found that work very effectively to kind of cover that complete picture is: step 1 is score yourself. Step 2 is trim your expenses. Step 3 is increasing your income levels. Step 4 is all about investing intelligently to grow your assets. Step 5 is vanishing debt. And then step 6 is all about expanding your education and effort. So we can dive deeper into those 6 steps, but this is a simple routine that you can run through on a weekly basis. Depending on where you are, you may hit one step stronger at different times than others, but these 6 simple steps is going to provide that clear roadmap that you need to do the things that we want to enjoy in life.
Yeah, I love that. And Tim, our founder, has something called the financial ABCs. And what's interesting is A is what's coming in, know your income. B is what's going out, your expenses. And C is, invest the rest wisely and, utilize the rest. And you've broken that down a little bit more here. And so I think this lines up perfectly with what we already, with what we teach. So let's dive in. And the first one is score. I think so many people, myself included, have go through a lot of our lives without really knowing, where we're at financially, right? And I can liken it to like driving without a GPS. You're just driving, and you might end up someplace, you might not, but more often than not, when you're just driving, you end up somewhere where you don't want to be. And so talk about the importance of scoring and what that looks like in your 6 steps.
Yeah, so I think the popular quote is, what we measure gets managed. And I like to say, how do you know if you're winning if you don't keep score, right? We know professional athletes, they're not playing football games and not tracking touchdowns. If it's baseball, we're tracking our hits. If it's, pick your sport, but all athletes they're tracking, they're keeping score. So why don't we do the same? Let's track our income. If it's from one source or many, let's track our expenses. Let's look at our assets and our debt and understand what those are all about. Let's look at those metrics, because I think everyone needs a scorecard, and there's so many different ways to score yourself. And there's a lot of free online tools such as like Mint or Personal Capital that can help you score yourself as well. So step one, start scoring yourself.
Yeah, I like it, and I think that a lot of people don't realize what they don't realize. And I know that when I've started tracking income and expenses, a lot of times I end up realizing, wow, I didn't realize I made that much money, or I didn't realize I was making that much money. And on the other side, when I track my expenses, I realized I didn't realize I was spending that much or spending that much in that area. So the second one is trim expenses, and you chose that second. And I'd love to know why expenses came before income, because I think a lot of people, myself included, thought, and I sometimes find myself going back into that mindset where if I just make more money, I'll have more money, and for years running a business, that was my mindset. I just kept making more money, but then my expenses kept going right along with it, and I don't have what I would have liked to show for it. So why was that the second step out of all the rest of them?
Yeah, so I agree completely. It's not how much we make, sometimes it's how much we keep, right? So if we don't keep our expenses in check, every time we make another dollar, we're going to spend another dollar. And so we want to keep our expenses, our cost of living. Sometimes it's known as like lifestyle creep. There's different ways for it. But what's cool is if we take the time, and if we're clever and creative, we can really drive down our cost of living. There's so many ways from housing, transportation, insurances, food, as well as disposable income. There's so many ways that you can drive down your expenses, which ultimately puts you in a great position where if you want to achieve financial freedom, financial independence, you need a lot less to live on. So trimming your expenses is a really easy way, and sometimes it's easier to trim back some wasteful spending as opposed to go try to make more income.
Can you think of any, whether it's for yourself or anybody that you've worked with, either some creative, outrageous, different ways that people have been able to lower their expenses? Because I think that a lot of people are stuck. Once again, I'm speaking for myself, stuck in their ways of this is how much I spend and this is, but then we start to take a look at it and we start to find all of these, opportunities where we could start to save a little here or a little here. So can you think of anything creative or different that people have done to lower their expenses?
Yeah. The big one typically is just start with your food category, right? Especially this year, a lot of people are actually having their savings growing because they're having to stay home and prepare more meals, right? So it starts with, hey, if you can reduce some of those trips to the restaurants and eating out, boom, and start preparing some meals. That can be a quick win right there. That would be my first suggestion. And again, too, is like depending on your commute and how much you travel, you're saving a lot more money in gas. So embracing some of this teleworking, for example, this can again increase your cash flow because you're spending a lot less on your vehicle costs, and gives you opportunity to invest more.
Yeah, I think food is a huge one, and once again, everybody is feeling it. We swung the opposite way. My wife loves to go out and eat, even though we have two rambunctious little children. And I think that it is an easy one that people can look at or shift or adjust, because there's so many options there. And the range of expenses can go up or down depending on whether you're buying at the supermarket or whether you're going out to restaurants. It makes a big difference. Number 3 is increase your income. And I love being a part of the One Life community because we are a big proponent and big advocate of entrepreneurship, starting your own business, creating a side hustle, even if it's being an intrapreneur. But for the longest time, I know growing up, for my parents, it was like, this was what their paycheck was, and that's what they were going to make, and that's what they were going to make. And they knew what they were going to make for the whole year, and it wasn't going to be $1 more. And so things like playing the lottery or, they look for these alternative ways to try and make some more money. But today, the internet and all these new opportunities create ways for people to create, and increase their income. For you, what do you suggest? Do you find that people are having success kind of climbing their ladder, starting a side, when you think of increased income, what do you suggest to people on how to do that?
Yeah, so the best way to do it is the old phrase, if you want to earn more, you need to learn more. And you don't need to necessarily spend significant amount of money. Going back to college and the universities, there's so many great ways to read, listen, attend events. There's so much inexpensive curriculum out there for you to expand your, if we want to call it vertical income, if we want to call it horizontal income. There's so many ways to learn, to improve your skills, your talents, your abilities, and go out there and increase in value in the marketplace. So I would start with simply, what are you passionate about? What do you want to learn more about? And how can you serve out in the market? Because unlike your expenses, where there is a certain level how much you can reduce, there is absolutely no ceiling on your income potential. So if you can find an area that you want to really expand and learn in, then boom, you can go off and offer your services. If it's creating new products, if it's expanding your portfolio of services. So I would start there.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. And the reality of today's world is there is no one right answer for everybody, but there are a ton of options out there. And if someone is willing to go and learn about those options, read some books, and even stumble a few times to figure out, what their jive is, there is that they can do. And I love that I'm seeing my aunts and I'm seeing my grandma, getting side hustles and looking for these alternative ways of creating, income outside of their regular job. And it's, people are waking up to the possibilities that are out there. I want to bring in a question from one of our live watchers, Mr. B. He is a One Life guide and also our musical, provides all of our musical and DJ support for our virtual roadmap experiences. He says, what are your thoughts on most people's traditional way of saving money? He says, i.e. a bank account. And I know that the next one is assets. And so we haven't talked a whole lot yet about savings, but maybe that's where this part comes in. What are your thoughts on savings? And, you mentioned that it's going up since the pandemic and people are saving more and spending less, but can you talk a little bit about savings and how most people are doing it compared to what they should be doing?
Yeah, so we know there's, I guess, 2 ways to make money. We can either, work for it, or it can work for us, right? So, yeah, so after we get to the point where we're trimming our expenses and we're finding opportunities to increase our income, the question is how much do you save and what do you do with those savings? I totally agree. There's 3 popular places that millionaires are parking their money these days. They're taking their savings and maybe playing in real estate. right? So if it's single family rental, multifamily, Airbnb, um, there's a whole host of ways to get into real estate. Um, you might want to play in financial markets. It's been quite the rebound this year. If it's something simple as putting your money in a mutual fund, an ETF, or getting more into stocks or options. Once again, if you can learn those areas, you can do very well. We know the magical power of compound interest is pretty impressive over time. And then thirdly is you can launch your own online business. I like to say is, why not create your own goose to lay golden eggs into your bank account every month? That's the best case scenario. So those three areas provide awesome opportunities to start pushing your savings in, and you can start small in any of those three and scale over time. But hey, I think we all agree it's much better for our money to make money as opposed to working for it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that at least growing up in the environment that I grew up in, and they're very middle class, work hard. Parents had 9 to 5s and went to work every day, and but that's how they made money, and that was their concept of money, was that you work for money, and if you wanted to make more money, then you worked harder, or you worked more, or you even worked smarter. But working was always part of the equation, and what I've had to learn, and I'm still very much in the learning process, but being in the One Life community kind of opens you to the eyes of the power of letting money work for you, and letting and you mentioned compound interest and all the things about that. So can you speak a little bit more about that concept of letting your money, money for money as opposed to work for money or time for money, and just that shift in mindset that's necessary for someone to see their wealth grow?
Yeah, sure. So let's go into I guess two examples. I like to play in financial markets as well as online business, right? So think of it this way. I mean, we've probably all heard the story where if you take a penny and you double it every day for 30 days, it's like $10 million, right? So why not start with something small where you open up a Roth IRA and you can contribute 500 a month or 6,000 a year into a Roth IRA. And then now that you're contributing, you have to figure out where do you want to allocate it. But again, if you start doing your homework, you can find some places where I like to say, where can you plant seeds to grow sequoia trees in your portfolio, right? So financial markets is an example where over time you can learn where to plant your seeds and grow some very significant trees through compounding. And then same to pivot, if you want to play an online business, you can do very well if you can create some sort of digital products and offer them to a global audience. The numbers are staggering. So for an example, in my book, I call it the $14 hour rule. And it's like, how can you make $14 an hour? And they say, well, that's not a whole lot of cash, but if you can make $14 an hour every hour of every day for the entire month, well, do the math, and that's $10,000 a month, and you can have a pretty comfortable living. So the question is, where can you get into an online business type situation where you're able to deliver your personal products and services to customers and clients who really need something that you have to offer? So that's two areas where, again, a little more detailed example of where you can get going in investing.
So many, once again, I think that the theme of this is that there's no right answer for any one person, but there are a ton of options for everybody to go out there and figure out. I love how you said it, that you play in the markets. And I think that, I'm sure that's how it becomes as a game, and, there's a scorecard and you're winning more than you're losing. But I think that that's a great kind of mindset to have. The next two are debts and education. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, kind of those two, or maybe we can focus on debts and if there's a plan that people should follow, or I know that there's always and I think it's an excuse people use of, what's the quickest way to pay down my debt? And I've kind of, used that as a procrastination excuse of, I don't know if I should do this one or that one. So then I just didn't do any of them. When it comes to debts, what's your advice on how people should handle and manage those?
Yeah, so I guess to quote a personal finance guru that we most know of, Dave Ramsey, he says often at times we spend money we don't have on things we don't need to impress people we don't like, right? And I think we have to start with the root cause of how did we get it? We live obviously in a world of instant gratification, where our spending habits may be a little bit out of control. So circling back to maybe step one is, let's score ourselves. Let's be more mindful. And in fact, I encourage people to not have a budget, but create what's called a spending plan. So before the month starts, I want you to spend your money, right? Create a plan of attack, a game plan before the month even starts, and have that spending plan. So you're already having purpose for your money, I guess, to start off with. But yeah, if you have debt, there's clearly debt destruction tools, is what I call them, out there, where you can create your list of your existing debts and come up with a game plan. The two popular ways, I think, are like the debt snowball, where you're starting with the smallest amount and you're working your way down the list to the largest amount, and you have a plan in place. The other popular way is just starting with the highest interest rate and slowly working your way down the list to the lowest interest rate. But those are two ways where you start with your plan of attack, and you start putting your cash flow, and you can totally reduce your debt over time.
You're right. It comes to a plan, and like the shirt says, you dream it, you plan it, and what you're talking about is going out there and living it and executing on it. So that's fantastic, guys. We're coming up on the last little bit here. The last part is education, and I know that obviously that's what we've been talking about today. But if there's any specific questions that you have for Matt, or anything that you want to get back into or cover, throw them in the comments there, and we'll try and rehash them or cover them as well. But the last one is education. And, Matt, what I also am I'm very grateful for being in the One Life community, for the reason that even the ones who have reached the mountaintop, they're still learning. They're still educating themselves and still growing, and because that doesn't stop. And so I think that last step, right, is kind of an ongoing thing. I would imagine you never learn enough about money. But what can people do, or how do people continue to educate themselves? Because there is a lot of information out there, but I think it also, maybe it's just an excuse, but I think that also scares people, because there is so much, and there's so much noise, and there's so many gurus, and there's so many, it's very easy to go down the wrong path, or, the headlines about all these scams and frauds and stuff like that. So I think people are very just nervous. So how can they continue to educate themselves, or what can they do to continually grow amidst the kind of, turbulent world that we live in?
Yeah, so unfortunately, as soon as we tend to figure it out, things change over time. So step 6 is where I really promote the combination of education and effort to get those extraordinary results. And I think you really need that weekly routine where you're going out and you're learning more material and you're taking action, because it's kind of the catch-all, where you can always score better. You can always find better ways to trim, more ways to grow your income, better places to invest. And again, I can't emphasize enough where just getting that $10 book on Amazon, right? watching those free videos on YouTube, attending select events, webinars, the list goes on and on. There's so much free content. I think the areas I'd like to highlight, though, is make sure you consciously consume content, because we're in this information age where you're overwhelmed. So going back to, I guess, maybe your guys' triangle, is take the time to form that vision and put some clarity on where you want to go, and then try to consciously consume that content, reading, listening, watching, attending. Is that connected with where you want to go? And that may give you some more purpose. But so much opportunity out there.
Yeah, I love that you said, consciously consume content, because it's very easy to unconsciously do that and not realize what you're putting into your subconscious brain. You just scrolling down the Facebook feed, or scrolling down, whatever feed you want to do. I had to delete all the feeds off my phone. I had to delete the Facebooks. I had to delete, the Googles, the Reddits. I had to delete all those because of what you said. There was just too much toxic. There's too much toxic stuff out there right now. And, they weren't around where my goals were and what my vision was. And so you have a choice. And I think that's a great thing that you bring up, is that you have a choice to go out and choose what you want to listen to. Just some love from our live viewers. Felicia Jones, a longtime One Lifer, said she's excited to hear these nuggets of knowledge. She said thank you. Looks like you have a fan, Karina Estrada Moiro. Sorry for that last name. She is excited to see you on, and Mr. B was thanking for the answers there. So if you guys have other questions, we got a few more minutes here, but I would encourage you guys. I know Matt he's in the process of writing a book, in the process of putting together a course to put these 6 steps and make it easy for the world to utilize. But for you guys, I would encourage you guys to take advantage of the opportunity to connect with him now. So I know, Matt, they can get connected with you. The best way is to send you an email. And so I will put the email in the comments as well, but it's tylrmde@gmail.com. And you guys can email him there. I'd encourage you guys to do that with any questions or follow-up, or send him some thanks from the One Life community. Matt, is there anything that hasn't been said that should have been covered, or is there anything else that you want to circle back to that you feel needs to get mentioned?
Yeah, no, I think it's a critical piece to allow you to go out and if you want to travel, you want to reach that financial freedom. I think it's a lot easier to obtain than they know. So I encourage them to reach out and continue on their path of education, because there's so many great things to explore and do and achieve, and just a matter of education and effort to make it happen.
Yeah, a lot of people get attributed with the quote, but it's something to the effect of people underestimate what they can do in 3 years and overestimate what they can do in 1 year. And I think that's so true, that compounding, I like to talk about compound effort, right? Compound interest works wonders. Compound effort does the same thing for people in their own lives. So, Matt, this has been a wonderful conversation. I can tell that that a lot of people got some value out of it. We did get one question in from Mr. B again. He said, would you recommend sharing your visions or goals with someone? And I know that there are contrasting beliefs around that, right? Some people say share it with everybody because you're going to speak it into existence, and some people say keep it tight to your heart because no one's going to understand and get it anyways. Where do you stand on that?
I guess I'd encourage everyone to read Atomic Habits by James Clear. He's got a quote there. He says, "You don't always rise to the level of your goals; you fall to the level of your routines." So I would encourage to connect some sort of routine to those goals and make them happen. I think your routines, you show me your routines and I'll show you your future. And I think your routines have a much more powerful impact on achieving those goals. So that's something maybe he can explore and check out.
Cool. Yeah, I've heard that book come up quite a bit, and I haven't read that one, but it's definitely on my list. And James Clear is a brilliant guy. As are you, Matt. Felicia, she said she wants to know when the book's coming out, and there will be an audio book as well. So it looks like you're going to have to get your voice lessons on, because she said she wants her team at her company to hear this. So great stuff, Matt. And I put his email into the comments there. So it's tylrmde@gmail.com. Also, you can connect with him. I believe he has a Facebook profile. And I would encourage you guys to get involved and let us know what you guys gained from today's talk. Because I love that today we've really brought the tactics. You know, we've talked a lot about stories, and there's been a lot of just really great stories over the last several weeks. But today, I think we really got into the nuts and bolts of how to dream, plan, and live your best life. So hope you guys enjoyed it. I know you guys did. If you guys have any questions, we encourage you guys to put those in the comments. Leave a rating and review on the podcast, and make sure you guys turn on notifications so you guys can know when we go live. We're here every Tuesday, guys, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, helping you guys dream, plan, and live your best life. And we'll see you next week.
Dreaming, planning, we're gonna live it now.